Whether you're into comedians roasting each other's life choices or turning yesterday's bad decisions into today's funny stories, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Download the Amazon Music app and get in on the joke, or go to amazon.com/ad-free-comedy. That's amazon.com/ad-free-comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
When Valeera was just a child, her life was torn apart by tragedy. Bandits ravaged her home, killing her family, but the determined young elf survived. Through both the chaos of the scourge and the harsh streets, she learned to live by her wits, resorting to theft to survive. One day, as fate would have it, she stole a scroll, only to discover it held secrets about her own lineage. Her ancestor Relfthra had been a revered high elf mage and a member of the clandestine Order of Tirisfal. But fortune didn't always favor her. In another heist gone wrong, Valeera was caught trying to steal a shaman's talisman, leading to her imprisonment. Her fierce spirit wasn't broken though, as she fought back against the guards, displaying a skill that would soon catch the eye of an arena promoter. Before Valeera could orchestrate her escape, she was sold to the orc Rhaegar Earthfury, joining the ranks of Brol Baremantle and the seasoned fighter Bloodeye Redfist. Together, they were thrust into the brutal world of gladiatorial combat in the Crimson Ring. However, tragedy struck again when Bloodeye was killed. As Valeera and Brol mourned his passing, Brol shared stories of both Rhaegar's past and Bloodeye's fierce legacy. Bloodeye Redfist was born into the battle-hardened Blackrock clan, under the shadow of the legendary warchief Orgrim Doomhammer. His early life was a crucible of violence, his childhood marked by the clash of steel. By the age of 7, Bloodeye had already lost an eye in combat, a lasting reminder of the brutal world in which he was raised. Years later, Bloodeye's fiery temper and fighting spirit landed him in trouble in Booty Bay, where goblins moved to arrest him. Even in chains, he fought with such ferocity and skill that he caught the eye of Rhaegar Earthfury, who recognized his raw potential. Rhaegar, seeing more than just a troublemaker, purchased him as a slave. When Thrall led the orcs to their new home across the Great Sea, Rhaegar brought Bloodeye along, taking him to the blood-stained lands of the Barrens. As they traveled the grueling fight circuit, Rhaegar trained Bloodeye not just in the art of battle, but in strategy. Over the next 3 years, Bloodeye rose to prominence, becoming the orcs' favorite champion. His prowess in single combat was unmatched, and in his final year of life, he bested every opponent that dared to challenge him. Rhaegar and Bloodeye amassed wealth together, their bond forged through blood and victory. Though Bloodeye earned his freedom, he had no desire to step away from the arena. Instead, he and Rhaegar pooled their fortunes to purchase and train new gladiators, Brol Baremantle and Valeera Sanguinar, forming a team destined for greatness. But fate had other plans. Just a day after Rhaegar bought Valeera, Bloodeye was struck down, poisoned by the lover of a warrior he had killed in the arena. Even in his final moments, Bloodeye fought with the same tenacity that had defined his life, dragging his assassin to the grave alongside him. His legacy lived on through the fighters he had trained and the legend he had carved in blood. As Valeera and Brol were being transported in a caged wagon to Orgrimmar, the 2 orc guards escorting them exchanged in casual conversation. One grumbled that Rhaegar Earthfury had ordered them to reach the city by nightfall, but a broken cartwheel had slowed their journey. The orcs exchanged dark jokes about the 2 elves not lasting long in the arena, convinced that Rhaegar's time as a gladiator master was nearing its end. Their conversation was interrupted when they spotted what looked like rubble washed up on the shore, until it moved. A crocodile lunged out of the water, dragging a man toward the waves. To the orc's surprise, the man fought back with unexpected ferocity, grabbing a rock and slamming it across the croc's face, forcing it to release him. Amused, the orcs placed bets on whether the human would survive the encounter or become the creature's next meal. As the man armed himself with a makeshift weapon, standing his ground against this massive beast, the orcs continued to argue about the odds of his survival. Just then, Rhaegar arrived, curious about the commotion. As the orcs cheered for the human, Rhaegar watched the scene unfold. One of the orcs exclaimed, "Stick broke, your man's finished." But Rhaegar, with his keen eye for fighters, disagreed. "Is he? Look at that leap. He's agile, keeps his head. I'll take your bet and double it. The human, desperate and resourceful, managed to blind the crocolisk in one eye. The beast, jaws wide, was ready to finish the fight, but Rhaegar stepped in, using his shamanic powers to tip the scales. The croc, enraged and disoriented, impaled itself on the human's weapon, collapsing dead on top of him. I couldn't risk you being damaged by the beast's death throes, Rhaegar said to the man. Who are you, human? The man, still disoriented, replied that he didn't know who he was or where he came from. With that, Rhaegar knocked him unconscious and added him to his gladiator team. Brol, watching the exchange from his cage, warned Rhaegar, "There's a treaty between the Horde and Alliance now, remember? You're playing with fire, Rhaegar, grabbing a free human." "Free?" Rhaegar responded with a smirk. "You mean this deserter I've captured? Until he can prove otherwise, Pinkskin belongs to me. He'll take Blood-Eye's place in the arena." The man awoke to the jarring clatter of the cage, his mind hazy and his body aching. As his vision cleared, he found himself in the company of two strangers, a towering Night Elf and a slender, sharp-eyed Blood Elf. "We're on our way to Orgrimmar," the Blood Elf Valeera informed him, her voice tinged with bitterness. "We've been taken to train as gladiators in the Orc City. Brol here, he's already been fighting in the arenas for a while." The Night Elf Brol nodded solemnly. "I've been owned by Rhaegar for some time now," he explained. "I trained with Blood-Eye before he died." The human blinked in confusion. "Who's Blood-Eye?" Brol raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "You really don't remember anything, do you?" "Blood-Eye was an orc, last year's champion in single combat. Everyone knows his name. I fought alongside him in many victories." Valeera scoffed, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Big surprise with the great Blood-Eye as your partner. Aren't you proud of how well you serve your Horde master?" Brol shot at her cold glare. "I fight to survive, Valeera, while you, the Blood Elves, are nothing but willing traitors." Before their argument could escalate, the human, still trying to grasp the situation, blurted out, "Wait, you're supposed to be a gladiator? But you're just a child." "I'm not a child," Valeera snapped, explaining that elves age differently from humans. She went on to share her past, how she survived after bandits killed her family, even managing to outlast the Scourge, until an ill-fated attempt to steal a shaman's talisman landed her in Orcish prison. "I was a day from escaping when Rhaegar bought me," she added bitterly. Brol, unimpressed, says Blood Elves are untrustworthy traitors, but Valeera stood firm. "We can be trusted, Brol. To fight as we choose with all our power of mind and body. To know our friends from our enemies and to avenge all slights against us. You can place your trust in that." The trio soon arrived in Orgrimmar and were led into their cell. Rhaegar addressed them. "You all know why you're here. You're fighters by instinct and inclination, but your inner fire rages out of control. I will teach you to channel that fire, to fight as individuals and as a team. In 3 weeks, you'll compete at Dire Maul. You'll win, or you will die." Training began immediately. Valeera and Brol clashed, their blows echoing in the arena as Brol used his druidic staff to fend off her swift strikes. "You'll have a hard time taking me down with that weakling's weapon," Valeera taunted. But Brol responded by transforming into his bear form, showing her the true power of nature. Their fight was intense, but the human, refusing to fight for amusement, stood apart, watching silently. Their training was interrupted by a rival gladiator team, comprised of a Tauren, a troll, and an undead. The Tauren, Magor, sneered, "Let's see what Rhaegar's so-called fighters are made of." Their goblin leader added, "Apply enough pressure, and the weakest link will snap." That night, as the group sat in their cage under the pale glow of Orgrimmar's sky, tensions were rising. Brol couldn't hide his frustration any longer. What was Rhaegar thinking, he muttered. A human who refuses to fight, and 2 elves who only want to tear each other apart. How are we supposed to be a team? Valeera, leaning against the wall, shot him a look. "We were chosen the same way Rhaegar picked Blood-Eye," she said. "Each of us reminds him of something in himself." She ticked off the traits. "My quickness, your barely contained fury, and the human's well-honed skill." Before she could continue, the human, who had remained mostly silent, interrupted. "And what, amnesia?" Valeera smirked. Your second greatest asset as far as Rhaegar is concerned. But I don't think you just hit your head. You crossed paths with something far more dangerous, powerful sorcery. I can still feel the dark magic clinging to you. Brol, sitting in between from them, grunted. You'd recognize that, wouldn't you? He muttered darkly. Valeera's eyes flashed. And what's that supposed to mean, Brol? He sighed, waving off her growing irritation. I know a meditative technique. It might help him get his memory back. He started to focus, but Valeera wasn't done. Antlerhead, she snapped, her voice cutting through the air. I'm talking to you. Brol's temper finally broke. You little fool, he shouted, turning on her. You could have damaged him. All you blood elves crave arcane magic. It's an addiction. That's what I meant. Valeera's lip curled in disdain. At least our males don't take 1,000-year naps while the women do the work, she retorted sharply. Fury flared in Brol's eyes, and he raised his claw, his voice low and dangerous. Do not insult the druids who walked the Emerald Dream, who fought and died to prevent the return of the Burning Legion. She met his gaze without flinching. Lay a claw on me, Bearmantle, and you'll see just how dangerous I am. Before things could escalate further, the human intervened. Save it, he said, voice calm but firm. Both of you, keep your rage for your enemies. Blood elves are the enemies of Night Elves, Brol growled. And of all the Alliance, they defected. Valeera's eyes narrowed, the bitterness in her voice rising to the surface. We were forced to defect. The Alliance's Grand Marshal Garithos used us, betrayed us. We joined the Horde to survive. Brol scoffed, his voice thick with disdain. You joined the Horde to satisfy your thirst for arcane magic. Your survival endangers the rest of us. Her hand clenched into a fist, and her voice trembled with anger. Cross me, Brol Bearmantle, and I'll show you how dangerous I really am. The human, clearly weary of the escalating argument, spoke again. Idiots. For now our enemy is Rhaegar. You can renew your old conflicts when you're free. The cage fell into an uneasy silence. While the others slept, Valeera lay awake, her thoughts swirling like a storm. My whole race was nearly exterminated by the Scourge, she reflected. Those who survived fought alongside the Alliance, only to be betrayed. Was it so wrong to ally with Illidan, with the Naga, just to save what few remained? Her mind drifted back to her childhood, the memory sharp and bitter. I was born into this. As a baby, I drank in magic with my mother's milk. I didn't ask for this dependency. It's what kept me alive. What right does Brol have to blame me for the choices of my people or the circumstance of my birth? And with those heavy thoughts, she remained awake for some time, uncertain of the future that awaited them. As dawn broke, the three gladiators prepared for another grueling day of training. The harsh sun of Orgrimmar beat down on them as they marched toward the arena, tension simmering beneath the surface. Valeera's thoughts were racing, her eyes narrowing as they neared the proving grounds. The human's right, she mused bitterly. Rhaegar is our true enemy. He guards us so fiercely, all while teaching us how to kill with more precision. I'll escape someday, and maybe I'll kill him when I do. Her focus shifted to Brol walking in front of her. But first, she thought, I'll teach Brol a lesson of my own. Respect my people or pay the price. A smirk tugged at her lips as she discreetly formed a glowing sphere of magic in her hand, siphoning a small amount of energy from Brol's essence. The pulse of arcane power fueled her growing resolve. As they entered the arena, the opposing team of gladiators, an undead, a tauren, and a troll, entered the arena behind them. Brol and Valeera went further into the arena, as the human stayed near the entrance. Now, said the tauren, while they are unarmed. Beat it, Pinkskin. He growled at the human, his voice heavy with disdain. Leave the training grounds to warriors tough enough to use it. The tension in the training yard was thick as the rival gladiators taunted Valeera, Brol, and the human, their words dripping with mockery. Brol, trying to be the voice of reason, tried to calm the group. They're just trying to stir up trouble. Ignore them, he said. But the troll, standing tall and sneering, wasn't about to let it go. Nature lover, coward, and turncoat, he spat, his words laced with venom. The undead gladiator added, the Dire Maul gladiators will eat you for breakfast. That was the last straw for Valeera. Her patience snapped, and before anyone could stop her, she lunged at the undead, her blade flashing in the dim light. "It's me who will be carving up breakfast, you walking scabbard," she snarled, sinking her blade into his exposed ribcage. As she turned to the troll demanding, "Who were you calling a turncoat?" He sneered back, "You, elf girl." Suddenly, a massive blow from behind sent Valeera sprawling to the ground. The Tauren had struck her, his immense strength knocking her off her feet. Brol and the human Crocbait, as Valeera had taken to calling him, stepped in immediately. "Stupid inexperienced hothead," Brol grumbled, shaking his head as he faced off against the Tauren. "She walked right into it. Crocbait, take the sword and start swinging, or she won't even be a stain on the sands of Dire Maul." The fight erupted. The troll swung his weapon at Valeera, but Crocbait intercepted the blow, saving her from a deadly strike. Meanwhile, Brol charged at the Tauren, roaring, "Hey Valeera, I thought these goons we were fighting were your horde allies." "Allies come and go, Brol, that's politics," Valeera shot back, her voice tight with frustration. "But the undead scourge are my eternal enemies." As Brol attempted to shift into his bear form, something went wrong. He hesitated, his movement sluggish, as if something was blocking him. Valeera and Crocbait yelled at him, confused and concerned. But as Valeera watched, realization dawned on her. "Why can't he shift?" she thought, panic rising. "Oh no, this is my fault." She stabbed the undead once more, but Brol grimaced, warning her, "It'll take a lot more than that to stop the undead." Valeera gritted her teeth. "I watched his kind kill my people. I know what he is. I'll deal with him again in a minute, after I save your sorry hide." But her bravado wasn't enough to stop the Tauren, who charged at her, and Brol with unrelenting force. He knocked Valeera aside like she was nothing, then hurled Brol across the arena with his horns. With both Valeera and Brol temporarily out of commission, the human took matters into his own hands. Crocbait, fueled by a desperate need to protect his companions, cut off the troll's arm and sliced the undead in half with a single powerful throw of his sword. He didn't stop there. Seeing the Tauren charging towards Brol again, he jumped in the way, shoving his blade deep into the Tauren's side, halting him where he stood. The fight was over, for now. Valeera, catching her breath, rushed to Crocbait and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, you saved him," she said, her voice tinged with guilt. "It was my fault. I drained his energy. I just wanted to teach him a lesson." Before the relief could settle, a massive orc towering over them stomped into view. His eyes scanned the scene with a sneer. "Rhaegar, you said these weak-hearted louts would give me a fight. You're kidding yourself. This loser's too weak to even stand. I'll kill him first." Without hesitation, Valeera stepped between the orc and Brol, defiant and protective. But the orc barely acknowledged her, effortlessly tossing her aside like a rag doll. As she hit the ground, a flash of silver caught the orc's attention. Crocbait was standing before him, a sword held steady at the orc's throat. "Back off," Crocbait growled, his voice low and threatening. "These elves are under my protection. Throw your sword now, or die." The orc paused, weighing his options. For a moment, it seemed like the fight might reignite. But Crocbait's unflinching resolve made it clear. He would not hesitate to strike. The fight erupted with a roar as the orc, Haiku Steeledge, squared off against the human. "I'm Haiku Steeledge, Pinkskin," he sneered. "I hear you don't even know your own name. Lucky break. It'll save Rhaegar the trouble of notifying your next of kin." Crocbait, ever quick on his feet, dodged the orc's heavy strike, eyes locking onto a fallen mace on the ground. Seizing the weapon, he swung it with brutal precision, smashing it across Haiku's face. "I just hope he can spell yours," Crocbait quipped, following up with a swift slice across Haiku's waist, cutting the orc in half and bringing the fight to a bloody end. As the dust settled, Valeera watched in admiration as Rhaegar worked to heal her wounds. "I wish you could remember where he fought," she said. "I'd love to ask for lessons. Brol and I were lucky he stepped in when he did, or we'd be beyond even your healing spells, Rhaegar." Her tone shifted, curiosity sparking in her eyes as she turned to their master. "Why did you do it? Set the Blade Master on us after we just faced down Spark Eye's 3 gladiators?" Rhaegar's answer was blunt and unbothered. "You need to learn to expect the unexpected, Valeera." Brol, still nursing his wounds, glanced down at Haiku's fallen form. "It's a lesson your Blade Master could have used." Haiku miscalculated. He thought Crocbait was a novice, no threat. Valeera, still feeling guilty for her earlier actions, turned to Brol, her voice soft. I'm sorry, Brol, for draining your energy earlier. It's just, you made me so furious. I wanted to pay you back. But I didn't mean for you to get hurt. Brol cut her off with a grunt. Rhaegar should have thought twice while putting a blood elf energy thief on our team. Before their bickering could continue, Crockbait stepped between them. That's enough, you two, he said firmly, then turned his gaze toward Rhaegar. Pity your shamanic healing rituals can't restore my memory, Rhaegar. Rhaegar shrugged, unfazed. Your body remembers how to fight, nothing else matters. The Blade Master's swords are yours, according to the rules of combat. Rhaegar led the trio to the dimly lit halls of Orgrimmar, the halls of legends looming before them, a sacred vault where the spoils of countless battles were stored. Weapons from every corner of Azeroth and even the orcs' distant homeworld lined the walls, each a testament to war and conquest. As they entered, the air grew heavy with the history of bloodshed and triumph, the weight of those past victories nearly palpable. Now that you've completed your gladiatorial training, Rhaegar said, his voice low but commanding, you may choose the weapon you will carry into the arena at Dire Maul. Valeera's eyes gleamed as they roamed the room before settling on a pair of long daggers. They were nearly as long as swords, razor sharp and beautifully balanced. She spun them in her hands, satisfied with their lethal grace. Brol, his brow furrowed in thought, reached for the druidic staff carved with intricate details. The likeness of a proud stag adorned the top, with long antlers adorning the head of the staff. He tested its weight, nodding to himself in quiet approval. Crockbait, however, seemed distant, his gaze drawn to a belt hanging on the wall. An alliance emblem was etched in the metal buckle, and as soon as his eyes locked onto it, something shifted within him. His hand hovered near the symbol and suddenly he fell into a trance, his mind consumed by a flicker of memory, something elusive yet powerful. Later, as they waited for a zeppelin to carry them across the sea, the tension in the air matched her unease. Valeera glanced at Brol and spoke in a low voice. Crockbait's a great fighter, but there's something odd about him, isn't there? Like, something's missing. Have you noticed that he never smiles? Brol, as gruff as ever, responded without hesitation. What's he got to smile about? You'd act odd too if you didn't know who you were. Except on you it might be an improvement. Nearby, Rhaegar stood with the captain of the Zeppelin, who observed their group with a raised brow. Two of your team are constantly bickering while the other stares off into the distance and broods. You may have a problem there, the captain remarked. Rhaegar remained unfazed, his expression stoic. They don't have to like each other to fight well together, he replied. Still, if things don't improve between them, I may make a change at Dire Maul. Their journey eventually brought them to Paralysis, a land of untamed beauty and deep secrets. Looming before them were the ruins of Eldrith Alas, an ancient city built by the Highborn more than 12,000 years ago. Now the once great city was little more than a sprawling mass of overgrown rubble, festering with ancient and malevolent forces. Few dared venture to this legendary wreckage, and those who survived spoke of it only in whispers, for the name Dire Maul carried its own dark weight. Near the city's northeastern wall, the ogres had claimed a small portion of the ruins several years ago. It was here, among the crumbling stones, that they staged their yearly games, brutal contests of death or glory, where gladiators from all walks of life fought for honor or died trying. As they approached the entrance to Dire Maul, the air was thick with murmurs of ogres, their booming voices echoing through the ancient ruins. Valeera, Brol, and Crockbait couldn't help but overhear the crowd's words. That scrawny human is supposed to take the place of Rhaegar's slain orc captain, Blood-Eye Redfist? One ogre scoffed. Another chimed in. I hear the elf girl and the pink skin haven't even been bloodied yet. The sneers grew louder as they walked, and before long an ogre child hurled an apple at Brol, shouting, He no night elf. Night elves don't got horns. He's some freak. The child grinned mischievously and yelled again, Hey antlerhead, your mama Tauren. Brol's fury ignited. Ogre brat, you dare? He roared as he shifted into his bear form, charging toward the child. An orc standing nearby, amused by the scene, grinned and taunted. Ha! You're a bear's dinner now, kid. But before Brol could follow through, Crocbait wrapped his arms around Brol's chest, trying to hold him back while talking some sense into him. "Brol, no," he warned, his voice steady and commanding. "You'll get us killed. We need to keep our wits and stay in control if we want to get out of Dire Maw alive." Brol, still seething, shifted back into his Night Elf form. "You're right," he muttered. "I'd hate to be remembered 100 years from now around ogre campfires as Brol, the mighty child killer." He cast one last glare at the ogre child before continuing their march toward the arena. The roar of the crowd intensified. The reigning champions, Two Heads, Giago, and Burly, stepped into the arena to a deafening cheer from the spectators, who were confident the trio would hold on to their title. The tournament began with the individual trials, and Brol was the first to step forward. His opponent, a centaur, barely stood a chance. Brol defeated him with ease, showcasing his strength and skill. Next up was Valeera. Rhaegar watched her closely, nodding approvingly as she entered the fray. "She's a quick study," he remarked as she swiftly took down her Quillbore opponent. With each victory, the crowd's disbelief grew, and so did the weight of Rhaegar's purse. The odds had been stacked against his untried team, but their streak of wins was earning him a small fortune. Then it was Crocbait's turn. He squared off against a towering Frostmane troll, and the spectators murmured in anticipation. Surely this human's luck would run out now. The troll sneered down at him while gripping his two swords. "Aren't orc blades a bit large for you, little human?" Crocbait's eyes narrowed as he raised his sword with confidence. "Dance closer, troll," he replied coolly. "I think you'll find that they are just about your size." Wide-eyed and stunned, the troll stood frozen as Crocbait's sword sliced through the air faster than anyone could react. Before the troll even realized what had happened, he fell to the ground, lifeless. The crowd erupted in disbelief, their shock echoing across the arena. "How'd that happen? Must have been rigged. Impossible," the spectators shouted, their voices filled with outrage at the unexpected turn of events. Amidst the chaos, Rhaegar stood calmly, a satisfied grin spreading across his face as he observed the mayhem. Fools. They refused to believe their own eyes. That blindness will be my making. At these odds, my take will be 3 years' income. Tomorrow's winnings will make me the richest gladiator master in Kalimdor. As the next fight prepared to begin, the arena roared with anticipation. The gates creaked open, and the reigning champions entered the battlefield. Their heavy steps shook the ground as they advanced towards Rhaegar's team. Valeera's eyes narrowed as she assessed the situation. "Ogres. Delightful, aren't they?" she remarked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "They are bigger than we are and stronger. We'll have to be faster and smarter," Crocbait noted, his eyes already scanning the enemy for weaknesses. Valeera flashed him a grin. "No problem. For a second there you had me worried." Brol, however, was focused, his tone more urgent. "This is serious, Valeera. I've seen Giago fight. He's strong, got a long reach, but his left swing is slow. I think I can take him." As the ogres charged, Brol readied himself for Giago, while Valeera and Crocbait prepared to face the other two. The arena erupted in chaos as axes and clubs swung through the air, the crowd screaming insults and curses. "Frauds, losers, kill those idiots." In the heat of battle, Brol squared off against Giago. The ogre's massive clubs smashed down on Brol's staff, shattering it in two. Giago sneered, towering over the Night Elf. "Too slow, elf freak. I'll break your arm as easily as I smashed your staff." But Brol was done holding back. With a snarl of fury, he shifted into his bear form, his massive claws digging into the ground. With renewed strength, Brol swiped at Giago, his claws tearing into the ogre's legs and hamstringing him. The giant crashed onto the ground, taken out of the fight. As Brol was victorious against him, he ran to help Crocbait. The ogre, holding his wounded leg, glared up at Brol, rage filling his eyes. "You die long time for that. I crush skull and suck brains," he growled, struggling to rise. Meanwhile, Burly, still locked in combat with Crocbait, snarled, "I give you quick death." Crocbait parried Burly's strikes effortlessly, responding with a smirk. "A handsome offer, ogre. Step closer." Giago, despite his injury, wasn't finished with Brol just yet. "Now, elf freak, I feast," he bellowed, swinging at Brol on one knee, still determined to strike. But before Giago could finish his attack, Crocbait swiftly sliced off his head, ending him in an instant. But when Giago fell on top of Brol, he broke his arm in the process. The crowd gasped, stunned by the brutal efficiency. Crocbait suckered Burly. He cut off Giago's head. One spectator shouted in disbelief. This can't be happening. I've lost 35 gold already, another wailed. Despite Giago's death, Brol wasn't safe yet. Giago's heavy body had pinned him to the ground, and Brol struggled to free himself with a broken arm, pain etched across his face. Across the arena, Two Heads slammed his weapon down, trying to crush Valeera, but she darted out of the way with a mocking laugh. Miss Cyclops, maybe you should let Two Eyes take a swing, she teased, as the two ogre heads bickered amongst themselves. As the two heads argued, Valeera grinned to herself. Keep at it, boys. I'll be back in a minute, she muttered, rushing over to help Brol. Get out from under there, hurry! How's your arm? She asked, pulling at Giago's corpse. Broken, Brol winced, his face contorted in pain. You're a druid, right? So heal it, Valeera snapped, exasperated. Oh thanks, never thought of that, Brol replied sarcastically, managing a smirk despite the pain. Weren't you supposed to be dealing with Two Heads? He asked. I delegated, Valeera shot back with a grin. Learning to play to my strengths and taking my anger out on our enemies, unlike some grouches. Brol couldn't help but chuckle. Deserved that, didn't I? As the fight raged on, Crocbait clashed fiercely with Burly, blocking the ogre's heavy axe swings and retaliating with sharp, precise strikes. Valeera, eager to assist, dashed toward the fray. Do your druid healing thing on your arm, I'll be right back, she called to Brol. But Brol, sensing danger, warned her. Valeera, don't! Before he could finish, Valeera charged into the fight, calling out, Hold that thought! Crocbait, I'm come! But before she could land a blow, Burly swung his axe faster than anticipated, striking Valeera with the back of the blade and sending her crashing into the wall with a sickening thud. Valeera! Crocbait shouted, his fury ignited. His eyes narrowed with renewed determination as he turned to Burly, his voice filled with wrath. Hope you've made peace with your gods, Burly. Your time's up. In a swift, lethal move, Crocbait lunged at Burly, driving his sword into the ogre's throat and ending the fight in one brutal stroke. The crowd roared in shock. It's Two Heads against the Pinkskin. 40 silver on Crocbait. He moves like the spirit of Logosh himself, one spectator cried out as the fight neared its climactic conclusion. The arena was filled with chaos, the fight reaching its peak as Crocbait dodged Two Heads' wild swing with precision and speed. Blood was still dripping from Valeera's wounds, and her breath came in ragged gasps as she lay on the ground. Brol knelt beside her, his face etched with worry. Brol, get Valeera out of here before she bleeds to death, Crocbait shouted, his eyes never leaving Two Heads. I hear you, and don't get cocky, Croc, it's not over yet, Brol replied, hoisting Valeera onto his shoulder as she flinched from the pain. Hope druid healing's as good as you say, Valeera muttered weakly, her voice strained. With renewed focus, Crocbait danced around Two Heads' attack, slipping past the ogre's heavy swings. As Two Heads slammed his weapon into the ground, Crocbait leapt onto it, using it as leverage. The crowd watched in awe. By the gods, he is Logosh, a spectator exclaimed. In one final swift motion, Crocbait swung his sword, severing one of the ogre's heads. The crowd erupted into disbelief and awe. Logosh! Logosh lives! The spectators chanted, their voices filling the amphitheater with a thunderous roar. The ground seemed to shake with their cheers as the human earned a new name, one tied to the legend of Goldrin, aka Logosh, the great wolf spirit known for ferocity, savagery, and an unbreakable will. From the sidelines, Brol and Valeera watched, stunned and exhilarated by their victory. Valeera, still weak but grinning, asked, What are they saying? Logosh, Rhaegar answered, his tone filled with respect. It means ghost wolf. Valeera chuckled softly, her eyes half opened. Wolf. Good name for the hero of Dire Maul. 2 days later, the dust had settled, and Rhaegar found himself in negotiations with Helka, a powerful Tauren. Helka had her eyes on Valeera to lead an all-female gladiator team she was assembling. Rhaegar, ever the shrewd businessman, agreed to sell Valeera for 2,000 gold, sealing her fate in a new chapter of her journey. The tournament had ended, and Dire Maul was slowly emptying. The once thundering Colosseum was now filled with the quiet shuffle of gamblers, beggars, and prostitutes making their way out of the stadium. The victors, drunk on their winnings, and the losers nursing their defeats, drifted through the abandoned city's ancient byways before vanishing into the wilderness of Paralysis and beyond. Outside the city walls, a giant pyre roared to life where the bodies of the fallen gladiators were tossed. No ceremonies, no mourners. The annual games of the Crimson Ring had come to an end. Amidst the quiet aftermath, the newly crowned champions made their exit. But despite their victory, their wrists were shackled. A harsh reminder that glory did not equal freedom for those bound by their circumstances. As they left the arena, whispers echoed among the remaining spectators. "Where's the female elf?" one asked. Another muttered, "She was sold to that torn gladiator mistress, Helka." Separated from their comrade, Brol's mind raced. He couldn't make sense of it. "Leaving Valeera behind, it isn't right," he said, frustration and disbelief thick in his voice. Logosh, taken back, shot him a glance. "You're certain you weren't hit on the head back there in the arena?" "I judged her too harshly, Logosh," Brol admitted, his voice filled with regret. "I never thought Rhaegar would sell her, sell any of us. We were a team. She's too young, and because of what she is, she has too many demons to face. I accepted Rhaegar's ownership because I trusted him." Logosh, confused, asked, "You're saying you had a choice about your service to him?" "We, all of us, have choices," Brol responded, his voice heavy with meaning. As Brol and Logosh were being led away, Brol called out one last time, "Valeera, use your brains, don't do anything stupid. We'll come back for you." Valeera, watching her former team, her friends, being led away in chains, felt her anger boil over. "They'll come back for me?" she fumed, fists clenched tight, as if they weren't under constant guard. Her eyes narrowed, determination hardening her features. "Well, I don't need them. I'll get myself out of here, and then maybe I'll rescue them." Valeera arrived in the Broken Commons, her eyes scanning for an opportunity, and she found one. The team was preparing to ride wyverns to their next destination, but Valeera had other plans. Even though she was assigned a passenger, this was her chance to break free. As soon as she hopped onto the back of the wyvern named Bristlefur, she gave the creature a swift kick, urging it into flight. Her passenger, a Tauren named Tarm, barely managed to hold on, shouting, "Hey, not so fast, girl." Unaware to her escape attempt, Tarm assumed Valeera had simply been overeager, thinking it was a mistake. As they soared over the trees, she started a casual conversation about the forest below. "What's wrong with the forest? It used to run on for miles more," Valeera commented. "Nothing's wrong, little elf," Tarm replied, his tone relaxed. "The forests of Paralysis are slowly giving way to the grasslands of Mulgore. And when the woodland goes, I won't have a place to hide," she thought. With a sudden jerk, she sent Bristlefur diving toward the ground, and Tarm was thrown from the wyvern into the trees below. As she continued her rapid descent, she urged, "Bristlefur, beneath the trees, hurry! No one can disappear in a forest quicker than an elf." A small pang of guilt tugged at her as she said, "I almost hated tricking him. I suppose he'll be out of a job tomorrow." Arriving at Thunderbluff, Valeera hoped to find Logosh and Brol somewhere in the city. As she surveyed the area, she spotted a hippogriff soaring through the sky. She decided to set down on the outskirts behind a large tent and took note of the commotion. "Looks like some kind of fight down below. Everyone's running toward the main mesa. No doubt Brol's doing something stupid," she muttered to herself. From her vantage point, Valeera saw the hippogriff descending toward the mesa, its movements unsteady, and she wondered if it might be injured. Her pulse quickened as she thought, "Is it Brol and Logosh? They're escaping, leaving without me, again." But her thoughts quickly turned to the immediate threat of Rhaegar's guards getting ready to chase down the two escapees. Oh no, Rhaegar's guards. They'll bring them down from the hippogriff. As Valeera crouched in the bushes, she saw Rhaegar emerge from a nearby tent, a Tauren at his side. "My guards may catch them," Rhaegar said calmly. "Perhaps. You're taking your loss rather calmly, Rhaegar," the Tauren observed. Rhaegar's expressions remained stoic. "At Dire Maul, I recouped my investment in those two 1,000 times over. I knew this day was coming. A man is truly a prisoner only as long as he agrees to remain one. After that, in his heart at least, he is free. And where his heart is, his body may follow if his will is strong enough. He paused for a moment, his eyes gleaming. And I'm an old hand, Hamul. I recognize a hippogriff feather when I see one. I know what they can do in the right hands. Hearing Rhaegar speak stirred something deep within Valeera. His words echoed in her mind, and she found herself reflecting on her own situation, on freedom, on choices, and the will to break free from her chains. From her hidden perch within Thunderbluff, Valeera strained to keep her eyes on Brol and Logosh, but they were out of sight as they flew off on the back of the hippogriff. Frustrated, she glanced around, only to spot an ebon griffin descending toward the city. Her sharp ears caught the murmur of a conversation nearby. Below her, Magatha Grimtotem stood, her voice sharp as she addressed a mysterious rider. "That's close enough, assassin," Magatha barked. "Lady Magatha, you were expecting me?" the rider replied, his voice smooth with an edge of danger. "I received word through the Forsaken that you were coming. What business have you here?" Magatha asked, her gaze piercing. "None with the Tauren. I'm searching for the champion of Dire Maul, the one they call Logosh," the rider explained, his tone unwavering. He then added, "I want him dead or alive, and will pay handsomely for any information." Valeera's breath caught as she listened, her thoughts racing. Logosh, dead or alive? This should be worth overhearing. She leaned as close as she could against the wall, focusing on every word exchanged between Magatha and the assassin. Magatha, never one to shy away from dark magic, took a bundle of herbs from her pouch. "Herbs of rare and delicate power," she said, tossing them into the fire. "As they are consumed by the flames, they will show you where Logosh has gone." "Logosh and his companion are in Ashenvale at Warsong Gulch," the assassin said. "His life and that of his companion are already in peril. Look." Valeera strained to hear more, listening as the flames hissed and crackled. Although she couldn't see the vision within the fire, the sounds of battle rang clear, the clashing of weapons, the strained voices of Night Elves, and the unmistakable sound of Logosh fighting alongside them. And Brol. Something was wrong. It sounded like he was injured, or perhaps overexerting himself from casting a powerful spell. Valeera's mind raced. The assassin now knew exactly where they were, and worse yet, he was going after them. Her resolve hardened. The assassin, whoever sent him, found out from Magatha where Logosh and Brol went. They're in the thick of trouble as ever, and Brol may be hurt. Valeera leaped to her feet, her decision made. "Come on, Bristlefur," she whispered, mounting the wyvern swiftly. "We'll follow the human and stop him if we can." Following the assassin's trail, Valeera found herself at the edge of a Night Elf encampment. "Silverwing sentinels, led by a priestess of the moon," Valeera said softly. Bristlefur let out a low growl, causing her to glance down and whisper urgently, "Hush, Bristlefur. A blood elf in these parts won't get as warm a welcome as the human. Wait here. I need to get closer to listen to what they are saying." She crept closer, straining to hear. One of the Night Elves pointed to her owl companion and spoke. "Round Eye here tells me Brol has purified the idol of Remulus and freed himself of its curse. Now he and Logosh are taking it to Darnassus." Valeera's mind raced. Idol? What idol? What curse? She thought, her curiosity now piqued. But before she could gather more information, she felt a presence behind her. A Night Elf. Having spotted Valeera, mistook her for a spy, and swiftly moved to subdue her. The elf attempted to wrestle her to the ground, but Valeera wasn't an easy target. "I'm not a spy, Night Elf," Valeera growled, her voice steady even as she fought off the attack. "At least, I'm not spying on you. I'm a friend of Brol's and Logosh's. I fought beside them at Dire Maul. While that human you're so chummy with is an assassin who's been hired to kill..." "Try again, Blood Elf. A child wouldn't believe that tale." Frustration boiled over inside Valeera as she struggled to be heard. "Everyone looks at me and thinks, Blood Elf, traitor. But even a child would have more sense than to freely answer the assassin's questions just because he's human. It's really starting to irritate me." At that moment, she saw the assassin taking off into the sky on his mount, and her anger flared even hotter. "You see? Now that he's learned what he needed to know, he's off, while I'm stuck here, brawling uselessly with idiots," she snapped, wrenching free of her attacker's grasp. "Enough. You sentinels may be good, but I was trained by Rhaegar Earthfury." Her words hung in the air, sharp and cutting, as she stood ready to defend herself against the Night Elves' mistrust, while the real threat, her enemy, was already slipping away. Valeera stood in a tense circle, surrounded by 4 Night Elf sentinels, their swords gleaming in the daylight. Each of them was poised, their eyes cold and calculating as they closed in on her, weapons at the ready. "You're cornered, Blood Elf. Surrender now and it'll be easier for you," one sentinel said, her voice sharp and unwavering. Valeera's lips curled into a smirk as she twirled her daggers, her eyes darting between the sentinels. "Cornered? I think you're mistaken," she replied, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness, though her body was tense and ready for action. The sentinels advanced, swords raised. Valeera waited, her instincts honed, then made her move. One sentinel lunged first, swinging her sword in a wide arc. Valeera twisted to the side, dodging the blow effortlessly. She knocked the blade aside with the flat of her dagger and spun low, sweeping the elf's legs out from under her before springing backward to avoid another attack. A second sentinel charged at her, sword aimed at her chest, but Valeera ducked under the swing, disarming the attacker with a quick flick of her wrist. The sword flew from the Night Elf's hand, clattering to the ground as the elf stumbled back. Valeera was a blur of movement, weaving between the sentinels with grace and precision. She deflected another sword strike, the clash of metal ringing in the air. Though her daggers flashed dangerously, her strikes were calculated to incapacitate, not kill. She spun out of the way of another attack, dodging yet another blade aimed at her midsection. "You're quick," one sentinel growled, stepping forward with her sword raised. "But it won't save you." "Quick enough to get away," Valeera shot back with a grin, deflecting the sentinel's blade and ducking under a swing from one of the others. Her sharp eyes caught movement above the tree line. Bristlefur had arrived, wings flaring as he prepared to swoop down. Valeera feinted toward her attacker, causing her to brace for a strike. Instead, Valeera spun around, knocking the sentinel off balance and sending her stumbling into her other comrades. Before they could recover, Valeera bolted for the edge of the clearing. "Bristlefur, to me," Valeera called out, her voice urgent as she leaped onto the back of her wyvern. "Fly, Bristlefur, and fast. We head for Darnassus, the last place in the world where a blood elf will be expected. Or welcome." With a powerful flap of his wings, Bristlefur carried Valeera higher into the sky, leaving the sentinels behind. They could only watch in frustration as the blood elf escaped, their swords still drawn but now useless. An hour later, Valeera arrived in Rutheran village, her eyes scanning the quiet docks before continuing on toward Darnassus. As she moved stealthily through the shadows, she overheard a group of Night Elves discussing something that made her heart skip a beat. "Brol and Logosh left for Theramore late this afternoon," one of them said. Valeera's mind raced. "Theramore, that's where I need to go," she thought. She turned to Bristlefur, stroking his neck. "Sorry, Bristlefur, I'm tired too. But the assassin has a big head start, and Logosh's life may be at stake. Brol's too." With a determined nod, they took off again, this time heading across the continent. As they flew over the vast landscapes, Valeera finally spotted the assassin in the distance, closing in on the targets. "Fly as fast as you can, my dear," she urged Bristlefur. "Once we catch him, we'll rest, and when we do, I promise you all the wild boar you can eat." In the distance, Valeera spotted Brol and Logosh, unaware of the danger behind them. Her heart raced as she saw the assassin gaining ground. Oh no. Brol and Logosh, the assassin's almost on top of them and they don't have a clue. Idiots. She steadied herself on Bristlefur's back, her eyes narrowing. "Hold steady, Bristlefur. We've only got one chance." As the assassin aimed his crossbow, ready to strike, Valeera acted. With precision, she hurled her dagger, embedding it into the assassin's shoulder. He let out a cry of pain, looking back just in time to see Valeera diving toward him. Her eyes were locked on her target. She aimed to knock him off his mount. She collided with the assassin mid-air, sending both of them spiraling toward the ground. "Think again, assassin," Valeera shouted as they fall. "Bristlefur, keep to the skies." Their fall was broken by the sticky strands of a massive spiderweb. Valeera grimaced, realizing the danger they were now in. The assassin snarled at her. "You'll pay for this, blood elf." Valeera, tangled in the web beside him, glanced at the thick, glistening strands around them. "Considering what this stuff looks like, we both probably will." She shot back, her voice sharp as they were both stuck in the web, knowing the real fight was only just beginning. Finally managing to pull herself to her feet, Valeera locked eyes with the assassin, who also struggled to stand but remained entangled in the web. Her voice, laced with fury, cut through the tension. "Who sent you to kill Logosh?" The assassin sneered as they began their fight, the web swaying with their movements. I don't know who wants him dead, Blood Elf, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Pity, Valeera said, lunging forward with her dagger. If you know nothing, I have no reason to keep you alive. My very thoughts, the assassin shot back, deflecting her attack. One last time, assassin, who wants Logosh dead? She pressed, her voice sharp with determination. You'll never know, he sneered. Take her, Blackclaw. Suddenly, his ebon griffin swooped down, its talons grasping Valeera and pulling her into the air. Desperate, she fought back, managing to stab the griffin in the eye with her dagger. The creature let out a piercing screech, releasing her, and Valeera plummeted back toward the ground, crashing into the water below. Exhausted and gasping for air, Valeera could hear the assassin taunting her from above. Come up, little elf, so I can finish you. After finally catching her breath, she's finally able to ask one final time. Let me die with my curiosity assuaged. Who hired you? I tell my secrets to no one, not even the dead, the assassin growled, raising his weapon to end her life. But Valeera blocked the strike with her dagger, her eyes narrowing. Too bad, she said, her voice steady despite her wariness. If you'd been more helpful, I might have warned you, she finished, just as a massive tarantula lunged out from the shadows, grabbing the assassin in its jaws and finishing him off. Valeera, her body trembling with exhaustion, managed a wry smile. One meal a day's enough for you, my hairy friend. She collapsed to the ground, her vision blurring, only to see the forms of a male dwarf and a female human approaching her. Save the girl, Sven. Carry her to the boat, the woman instructed calmly. But she's a blood elf, mistress, an enemy of all. The dwarf began, but the woman cut him off with a gentle reprimand. You've lived in Theramore a long time, Sven. Haven't you learned by now that today's enemies can be tomorrow's friends? And that things are not always what they seem? Sven grumbled. No more platitudes today, my lady. You'll upset my digestion. Still, he bent down, grabbing Valeera under her arms and lifting her. Look at her, man. She's badly injured and barely more than an elf child. As he carried her, Valeera, her voice faint, murmured, Not a child. The woman, watching with concern, smiled softly. No, I suppose not. Like Sven, I watched you deal with that guild assassin. That was brave. You have great power in you. Valeera, struggling to stay awake, whispered, Thank you for saving me, lady. I sense lingering aura, powerful magic, but you're human. The woman, both kind and wary, replied, Even in your distress, you are perceptive, elf. I was once great among the mighty, but I believed in power too strongly. In the end, I lost mine. The lesson cost me my son, and many other mothers lost theirs as well. I rarely speak of it now, but I've thought much about the dance of light and dark since those days. I can feel the dance wars within you, little elf, as it did within me. If you feel inclined, seek me out when you are well and we will talk. But for now, remember only this. Redemption is never truly out of reach. She gently applied an herbal serum to Valeera's wounds. This will begin your healing. But your magic, Valeera asked weakly. There was a time when I was so powerful that my merest thought would have made you whole again. That time is gone. Once we've reached Theramore, you'll meet a true healer. Perhaps as we travel, you would tell me your story, the woman suggested as they made their way onward to Theramore. As they arrived in Theramore, a guard approached the woman. Chamberlain Aegwyn, the Lady Jaina needs you. Turning to Sven, Aegwyn gave her final instructions. Put Valeera in the west chamber, Sven. Summon a healer and have someone see to her wyvern, if you please. She then turned to Valeera, her eyes filled with wisdom and compassion. You must rest and recover, Valeera. You have great gifts, child. Your friends will need you by their sides if they are to survive. But choose your course carefully. No one's destiny is fixed, for good or ill. As the moon cast its soft glow over Theramore, Valeera quietly made her way out of the west chambers, her steps light but purposeful. In the distance, she heard familiar voices, Brol and Logosh, engaged in conversation. Brol, grinning slightly, teased, So Jaina and Aegwyn think you're actually King Varian of Stormwind. It would explain a lot, your arrogance for a start. Logosh's expression darkened as he responded, Brol, I've learned that my wife, though I see her only in the briefest of glimpses, is dead. This means my young son is alone. It's vital that I return to the Eastern Kingdoms immediately. Of course, Brol began, but before we leave, Logash interrupted, his tone laced with surprise. You'll come with me across the sea? We've already fought our way across one continent, Brol was saying with his usual gusto. I think we should try for two, but first we must find Valeera and free her. With a grin on her face, Valeera stepped forward. Too late, I'm already free. No thanks to you two sluggards, she teased. But I'm coming with you anyway. You two can barely get along without me. Brol, taken back but clearly elated, turned to her, eyes wide with surprise. Valeera? How? I freed myself, she replied with a grin. Brol chuckled, shaking his head. Why am I not surprised? Without warning, Valeera rushed toward Brol, lifting her into a tight embrace. Valeera laughed, her heart light. I have so much to tell you, she exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. And I want to hear about everything that's happened. Like, what's this about an idol? And Logash, you're a king? And we're going to Stormwind? Logash, a calm smile spreading across his face, replied. Peace, Valeera. No need to blow us there before the ship is ready. We'll have plenty of time to tell our stories, all of them, before we reach the Eastern Kingdoms. And then? Brol asked, his voice curious. Then, Logash said, his voice taking on a steely edge. Then I will seek out my enemies, and woe betide those who set themselves against me. Brol's grin returned, full of admiration. Ah, hear that, Valeera? That is the true voice of Logash. There speaks a king. As the three friends sailed across the open ocean, the salty breeze filling their sails, Brol broke the comfortable silence with a grin. If it turns out you truly are King Varian, Logash, he asked, raising a brow, will I have to salute or bow? Valeera burst into laughter, joining in the fun. Brol, even your bear form has more grace. But I've been secretly practicing my curtsy. Observe this, your highness. Logash smirked, playing along. If I am the king, I'll put you both in fool's motley and let you natter at each other for my amusement. He paused, the playful light fading from his eyes as he sighed. For all that Jaina Proudmoore has told me, that I must be Stormwind's lost king, my past remains just a series of disconnected images. I don't know this Varian, and king or not, I'm not sure I want to be him. If I had a choice, I'd choose to remain Logash, a simple gladiator. His gaze turned distant. But I have a son who may be in danger, and people who need me, or so Jaina says. My duty is clear. Valeera noticed a calm that seemed to settle over Brol, something she hadn't seen in him for a while. You seem less angry than before, Brol. Brol nodded, his expression softening as he looked toward Logash. Thank King Logash here for that, Valeera. His royalness helped me regain myself. He continued more quietly. The idol of Remulus has been restored, as has my control. All my spirit forms, cat, sea lion, stormcrow, and bear, they've returned, and my rage has finally abated. My balance has been restored. As the trio relaxed on the ship, Valeera turned to Brol with a grin. It's nice to have a peaceful chat together, but I miss Bristlefur, Brol. He was nearly as good as company as you are. Brol chuckled. Your wyvern earned his freedom, Valeera, as did Sharp Talon. A fine fighter, that hippogriff. Valeera's smile faded a bit as she added, Speaking of fighting, I won't miss that assassin who was after Logash. He's spider food now and it served him right. I do wish Logash had been able to question him though. Maybe someone doesn't want Logash to claim his throne. Before they could discuss it further, a shout echoed from the ship's deck. What's happening? The captain bellowed as the ship suddenly rocked under an attack from Naga forces. Logash's hand went instinctively to his swords as he looked to the captain. Our peaceful chat is over. Look to your weapons, Captain. With that, he sprang into action. The trio broke off, each taking on the incoming threats. A Naga with a sneer fixed his eyes on Brol. Nature-worshipping weakling, Night Elf scum. We don't take for ransom. Brol responded by landing a powerful punch squarely in the creature's face. There, we're in agreement, mutant spawn. He looked around and called out, Logash, there are more of them. Logash sliced through one Naga before responding dryly, Why am I not surprised? In the midst of the battle, Logash caught Brol's eye with a smirk. Brol, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Brol grunted, knocking down a Naga whose fall cracked the wooden deck. I'm thinking I could have stayed with Rhaegar, fought this hard as a gladiator and made more money. Is that it? A Naga lunged at Logash from behind, and with a swift movement, he pulled his sword up facing the incoming Naga, stabbing the creature through its mouth. Close enough, he muttered, pulling his blade free. Meanwhile, Valeera grabbed one of the Naga by its face tendrils, holding her dagger dangerously close to its throat. I need your scimitar, creep, she demanded, the fire in her eyes leaving no room for argument. Together the trio fought fiercely, their camaraderie and skill shining as they defended the ship against the relentless assault. Brol looked over and saw that Valeera was beginning to get surrounded by a swarm of Naga. His eyes narrowed and he called out, "Get back from Valeera." With a powerful charge, he shifted into his bear form, launching himself at the closest Naga and biting down on its neck, sending the creature reeling. The trio regrouped, catching their breath as they fended off the relentless attack. Valeera grinned, her eyes alight with adrenaline. The three of us together against overwhelming odds? It's like Dire Maul all over again. For less money. Logash returned her grin. That thought had occurred to Brol as well. Suddenly, the ocean surged, and a massive creature began rising from the depths. A Naga siren cast an arcane blast toward the ship, the force of it threatening to send them all to a watery grave. Valeera pointed to the creature. The Naga siren. She's trying to destroy the ship with arcane energy bursts. Brol turned to her, his voice urgent. Keep away from her, Valeera. Arcane energy is sinister, a dangerous temptation because of what you are. Valeera rolled her eyes but fired back. We Blood Elves aren't so fearful of the arcane, Brol, or so convinced of its innate evil. Brol's tone was firm, and that's the problem. Promise me, Valeera. Absorbing too much arcane energy will tempt you toward even darker magic. Sighing, Valeera nodded. All right, I'll do as you say, but... Before she could finish, the Naga siren bellowed, Night Elf, bid your friends goodbye and die in agony. Valeera leapt to her feet, defiance blazing in her eyes. I don't think so, Siren. I'll match my wits against your magic any day. Without hesitation, she dashed across the deck and sprang off the side of the ship, launching herself toward the siren. Brol's voice was filled with alarm. Valeera, no! Mid-air, Valeera shouted, so use it or lose it, witch. Grabbing hold of the siren's trident, she plunged into the water below, the water closing over them as the Naga lunged at her. Bring it, monster. We'll test the sharpness of these tines. Valeera spat as she fought off the attacks, stabbing at a Naga trying to close in on her. But her situation grew more dire by the second. Watching from the deck, Brol couldn't leave her down there alone. He leaped into the water after her, determined to get her back to safety before the Naga overwhelmed her. Valeera spotted him as she fought, yelling over the splashes. Brol, I'm not going to use the trident's energy, I'm just... Her words cut off abruptly as she saw a group of Naga drag Brol under the surface, pulling him away from her. Diving after him, Valeera's eyes widened as she spotted 4 Naga surrounding Brol. Bound to his aquatic form, he struggled but couldn't effectively fight them off. As sharp as those teeth look, that form is made for swimming, not fighting. Valeera's mind raced as she watched him struggle. I've got to save him. With determination, Valeera tightened her grip on the trident, ready to do whatever it took to pull Brol from the deadly depths. Valeera couldn't stand by and watch Brol struggle against his attackers any longer. Desperation took over and she did what she felt was necessary. Gripping the trident, she used its arcane energy to gain an advantage. Cutting through the Naga as she swam toward her friend. Hold on, Brol, she thought, charging down at the remaining enemies. Die, you watery devils. With a fierce thrust, she dispatched the last Naga attacking him. Climbing onto Brol's back, she held on as he powered toward the surface. Breaking free of the water, Valeera gasped. Finally, I can breathe again. Brol was visibly upset, his expression stern as he demanded, Give me the witch's trident, Valeera, now. Reluctantly, she handed him the weapon, saying, Brol, please, I know I said I wouldn't use arcane energy, but I needed the boost to save you. Her tone was pleading, hoping he'd understand. But Brol's voice was thick with frustration. You put yourself in danger. The danger is just Night Elf superstition, Brol. It isn't that dangerous, truly. My people wield arcane energy, not in that quantity. Not without paying a grave price, he retorted, his voice hard. Valeera's resolve didn't falter. I don't care. Even if it was dangerous, saving you would be worth it. Brol cut her off, his anger unshaken. Tell me that when you're deep in the pangs of withdrawal. Now come on, we need to return to the ship. Shifting into his flight form, he grabbed her in his talons, lifting them back toward the vessel. As they flew, a scene on the deck below caught their attention. Logash stood frozen, with a Naga looming over him. Her blade raised to strike. "As I thought," she sneered. "You're nothing but a weakling, mortal. A shadow of a man, just like before. All bluster, no fight. Not even worth ransoming. You're nothing." But Logash's voice rose defiantly. "I am the king of Stormwind, and no one, not the Naga, nor the Scourge, nor the fiery lords of the Burning Legion, will keep me from my people." In one swift move, he sliced the Naga in two, a fierce determination blazing in his eyes. His memories restored, Logash turned to the remaining Naga, a deadly glint in his gaze. "Now then, I have a few questions for the rest of you." The Naga, seeing the bloodlust in his eyes, quickly fled, abandoning the fight. As Brol and Valeera landed back on the deck, Brol called out with concern, "Logash?" Valeera, hesitant, tried, Varian?" He nodded, his expression firm yet warm. "I may be Varian the King, but I am still Logash, champion gladiator of the Crimson Ring and a friend to my friends." With a nod to each of them, he continued, "Valeera, help me dump this offal into the sea. And Brol, do what you can to heal our fallen sailors. We must make repairs quickly and resume our journey to the Eastern Kingdoms. I see storm clouds gathering on the horizon." As they went about their tasks, Valeera pulled her cloak tightly around herself. Glancing up at the sky for a brief moment, she thought she saw a great gray wolf, a phantom-like vision of strength, blotting out the sun. And that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. Now I know usually I do the full character and everything like that. I initially went with Valeera because I thought her history would be a bit quicker, but I went down the rabbit hole and trying a bit of a different tactic for doing her background. Since I was able to find the full comic, which is linked down below in case you're interested in reading it, I wanted to go a bit deeper for it. The wiki only briefly brushes over certain things that I know there's more to it, there's more conversations, there's more things that should be said about it. And so with having the full comic, I wanted to do it justice and go through and do that. So that's why this one took a lot longer than I originally thought, because I did not think that I would find the full comic for me to actually digest and actually take the panels and use them and get the specific information. So I'm trying something a little different. Hopefully it is still good for everyone. I know it probably won't be everyone's cup of tea, but either way, that's going to do it for this one. And like I say, let me know of any constructive criticism down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. You're doing great. And one last little message. I know life can be hard. Life can really suck sometimes, but keep powering through. You made it this far. Don't give up now. You're killing it. Alright, see you next one.